Ladies and gentlemen, the NFL season is finally underway, all right? I just watched that game on Thursday night between the Chiefs and the Lions, and let me tell you something. We got a lot to talk about later on in this video. I want to go over it at the very end for anybody who wants to stick around, but before that, we're going over players that are going to secure you a win in week number 1 of fantasy football, starting it off with Lamar Jackson going up against the Houston Texans. Now, is this a great matchup for Lamar Jackson? Absolutely. How about the Texans? Not so much. All right, I expect the Ravens to absolutely dominate this matchup. And if they don't, with a bunch of healthy players finally ready to go play in week number 1, we got a bigger problem on our hands. The Texans gave up the most rushing yards in the entire National Football League in 2022. Granted, most of these yards were given up to running backs, but listen here. Last season before Lamar got hurt, he was averaging 9.33 rushing attempts per game. That's a lot of attempts for a quarterback. He finished second in rushing yards for all quarterbacks, even after missing the final 5 weeks of the season, and finished with the second most rushing yards per game. Okay, only behind Justin Fields in a couple of these categories. Now, factor in that you finally have some deadly weapons that are healthy. A guy named Mark Andrews, we'll talk about that in just a minute here, who finished 2021 as the #1 tight end in fantasy football. You got Zay Flowers, who should be explosive. Rashad Bateman is finally healthy. And another guy here, Odell Beckham. He's a little bit injury prone, and he's on the injury report in week number 1, which leads us to player number 2 and 3. We got a little combo player at number 2 here. We have Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews in that same matchup against the Houston Texans. Zay Flowers looked great in camp. He was great in the preseason. A lot of good things coming from Zay Flowers here in the beginning of this season. Mark Andrews should still catch the most passes throughout the course of this season, but we are really just focused on week number 1. So in week number 1, I would be doing you guys a disservice if I didn't mention that Mark Andrews has a quad injury right now. Now, I'm recording this video early Friday morning. So if news comes out later Friday night and Mark Andrews is good to go for week 1, which obviously you're hoping he is if you drafted him in fantasy, then that's a good sign. All right, we're playing him all day, every day of the week. If he doesn't play, I think Zay Flowers' value goes up even more. And I think Rashad Bateman's role goes up even more. I think Isaiah Likely gets more work in this offense. Either way, I don't see this offense struggling in this matchup to move the ball at any point in time. I already made a video saying J.K. Dobbins was going to do well in my best matchups video. If you want to go check that out, I'll leave the video at the end of this one, so you can head right over to that one. And before you leave this video, by the way, hit that subscribe button. Number 3 on our list, we have Garrett Wilson going into this Monday night matchup. Could he save your week against the Buffalo Bills? We'll have to see. Last year in 2 games against Buffalo, Wilson averaged right around 15.9 fantasy points per game in PPR leagues. Now, Wilson is going to be the clear number 1 option here for Aaron Rodgers. I don't even think it's close. And Aaron Rodgers is known to lean on his number 1 receiver very heavily. I don't see anything different here happening. He did it with Javonte in Green Bay. I think he's going to do it with Wilson here in New York. Now, do not quote me and say that I said Garrett Wilson is the same player as Davante Adams. Davante Adams has been a top 5 wide receiver since I can remember. All right, that's not the situation with Garrett Wilson just yet. Do I think he could finish top 5? Absolutely. Is he right now at the beginning of the season? Absolutely not. All right, now Buffalo's defense is pretty middle of the road. It's a pretty mediocre defense, to say the least. They're not going to blow you away and stop you from scoring a boatload of points, but what they will do is beat you with their offense. They're going to try to outscore you. At least that's what I've seen in the past couple of seasons when Josh Allen has led this team. Now, one stat that I found very interesting is that Buffalo actually gave up the 4th most receiving touchdowns last year, and that was only in 16 games instead of 17 because of that Damar Hamlin situation. I would not be surprised at all if Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers connect for a touchdown in this first game on Monday night. Next up at number 4, we have Rashad White going up against the Minnesota Vikings. I think Rashad White is going to play a huge role, be a massive factor in week number 1 here. First off, the Vikings should win this game. I don't think it should be too much of a struggle either. We got primetime Kirk Cousins at 1 p.m. If we take a look at the depth chart, we can see that there is not much to work with at the running back position for the Buccaneers. We have Rashad White, we have Tucker, and then we have Edmonds. Oh, that is just brutal. All right, not too great behind White. And he should be in line to take all 3 downs in the backfield. All right, he should be an every down back. And the reason that I'm not concerned if the Bucs fall down early in this matchup is that Rashad White is an amazing pass catcher. We saw that last season. And not to mention, Baker Mayfield His quarterback in week number 1 had the highest checkdown rate in 2022, throwing a dump-off pass on just about 12% of his total attempts. Number 5 today, we have Captain Kirk Cousins here on the opposite side of Rashad White that we just talked about. This is prime time, like I just said. 1 p.m. Kirk is like Superman out there. You can't stop this man. The only complication I can see with the Vikings week 1 might be the run game struggling because Tampa Bay's run defense is not as bad as most people think. So this would mean that they're going to have to pass the ball more, and they have some elite options to do so in Justin Jefferson, arguably the best receiver in all of football. Jordan Addison should be an explosive wide receiver, and then one of the best tight ends in the league, one of the very few good tight ends in the league here, TJ Hawkinson. So plenty of options to make this happen. It's going to be, I think they're going to come out with a vengeance. All right. After losing that wild card round game to the Giants, it was pretty embarrassing. They were expected to go further than that. They're going to come out here and dominate in week number 1. And it's going to be the Kirk Cousins show. Just wait and see. Number 6 on our list, we have Javonte Williams. All right. Javonte Williams is going up against the Las Vegas Raiders. Has been looking fabulous coming off that knee injury last season. Way faster recovery than anybody would have thought. I mean, he wasn't even being drafted in most best ball leagues at the beginning of the year because they didn't think he was going to be back in time, but now he is going way ahead of Samaje Perine, which is his backup. Now, I found a tweet here from, hopefully I'm pronouncing this right, Deepak Chona. Javonte Williams. The algorithm projects 60% workload, 85% efficiency weeks 1 through 3. But he's been an outlier so far, so we anticipate outlier comeback, around 80% workload and around 90% efficiency. Data is often, most times, accurate, but we differ here, so we're offering you both projections. All right, so if we average those out, we're talking about an in-between number, 70% workload and about 87.5% efficiency. That's not bad. That's running back potentially number 1 material for you if he plays well enough. Now, as for the Raiders last season, they gave up the 5th most touchdowns to running backs and the most overall receiving to running backs. We aren't 100% sure what to expect here, but we do know that Javonte Williams is a great pass-catching back. The thing that really throws me off in this offense, since we haven't seen them play together yet, is Samaje Perine is also a great pass-catching back. So what is the usage going to look like exactly? I still like the matchup here for both of them. I like how the injury is progressing thus far for Javonte Williams. I think he's a great flex option at the very least in week number 1. Number 7 on our list, we have Tyler Higbee going up against the Seattle Seahawks. This one is pretty simple. No Cooper Kupp. All right, so our options are Van Jefferson as the number 1 wide receiver, Tutu Atwell, and Ben Skoranek. That is not looking good. That is not looking good at all. So Tyler Higbee is going to be the safety blanket for Matt Stafford. They already have that connection, as well as Van Jefferson has that connection with Matt Stafford. But Tutu Atwell, not really. And Ben Skoranek, okay, here and there he can get involved, but the main guys are going to be Tyler Higbee and Van Jefferson. Now, Seattle gave up the most fantasy points per game to tight ends last season and gave up the 2nd most total receiving yards to tight ends as well. Is it going to be pretty? Probably not. I would lean towards no. But will he get around 8 targets? Probably. Most likely. And if you need a tight end to fill in for Travis Kelce, if you had Tyler Higbee sitting on your bench as one of those latest round tight end picks, you're feeling great about that. All right, I would not be feeling bad about that whatsoever. As long as Cooper Kupp doesn't come back, Tyler Higbee is a solid tight end option. And by the way, most of my leagues, we don't even play in tight end leagues because there are so few good options. We have Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson, Darren Waller, maybe George Kittle, and then after that, it's just dud city. You never know. There's no consistency at the tight end position, so I prefer not to use it. So that's why we usually don't talk about tight ends in this video, but I gave you one right here. All right, and number 8, and then we're going to talk about that Chiefs-Lions game, by the way, so don't go anywhere if you want to hear about that. We have Ezekiel Elliott and Ramondre Stevenson against the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, listen, before you call me an idiot saying, oh, he's starting Zeke. What are you doing, you moron? Listen, Zeke might be a little bit washed up to most people, but he's going to get the goal line work in this offense. Last season against Philadelphia, by the way, he scored 15.6 PPR fantasy points in week number 6, and in week number 13, he scored 13.1. Both of these weeks, he was splitting carries with Tony Pollard. Now, the kicker here, why am I talking about Ezekiel Elliott? Because normally he wouldn't be a starter. You're right. But Ramondre Stevenson missed practice on Friday. Could it be nothing? And it is probably nothing. Yes. All right. It's probably nothing. I don't know what was happening behind the scenes with Ramondre, but if he doesn't play for whatever reason on Sunday, keep an eye on this. If he doesn't play on Sunday, Zeke could be a solid option, especially to put into your flex. Like, come on, that's a no-brainer. If Ramondre does end up playing, there's no doubt in my mind you start Ramondre. He's better at catching passes, and he catches a lot of them. As we've talked about throughout this offseason, I think Philly's D-line is going to be much improved this year, so teams are not going to be able to run the ball down their throats like they did last season, but I do think they're going to be able to get out in space and catch more passes. All right, we're moving on to this Chiefs-Lions game that I told you guys we'd talk about before you head out. By the way, if you're still here, make sure to hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. It would really help me out. We're pushing for 1,500 subs. You guys are awesome. Chiefs-Lions game. First thing that jumped out to me, Kadarius Toney, man. You are talking so much trash to Giants fans. Honestly, it was deserved. Not the trash talk. The failure of a performance that you put up in game number 1 of this season. Honestly, it bit him in the butt. And that's what happens when you talk too much trash. He said, oh, the Giants fans need me. The Giants fans will miss me when I'm gone. Yeah, they're really missing those 3 drops. They're really missing those three drops. And they're missing the fact that you said you were injured almost the entire season when you were apparently perfectly healthy. You just wanted to go to a better team. And that's what happens when you go to a better team. You can't catch the ball. All right, Sky Moore, by the way. This one was really disappointing. Sky Moore, starting slot wide receiver, drafted really early in best ball leagues, probably the 8th round of best ball, 7th round. In most redraft leagues, I think he went around the 10th round. 0.4? Oh, that's disgusting. That was absolutely disgusting. I was cringing watching this. I don't think he's going to be like that all year. So don't overreact. Don't go crazy. I know I had him just outside the top 30 on my wide receiver rankings. That was a massive mistake, but I can't go out there and catch the ball for him. All right? I don't know what you guys want from me. Regardless, it was a bad ranking. I'll take my L on that. Sky Moore was a bad ranking. Hold on to this guy. Don't go trading him after week number 1. I think it's only up from here. You can't get worse than 0.4 fantasy points. And then Jahmyr Gibbs, looking like clearly, by far, the best running back on the field last night. Just not enough attempts. I had a comment about this the other day. They said they wish they knew that Jahmyr Gibbs was going to be eased into the offense and didn't get the workload that, he was getting hyped up all offseason to get. That's not your fault. Do not be beating yourself up over that. Everybody was hyping up Gibbs. Everybody thought he was going to get a ton of work in week number 1. Turns out they wanted to ride the David Montgomery train where he was going to get 2 to 3 yards per carry every single time. It wasn't pretty, but he ended up with 13-ish fantasy points, a little bit over 13 fantasy points in PPR leagues, and got into the end zone. If he doesn't get into the end zone in that matchup, then it's not looking as good for David Montgomery, but he saved it with that touchdown and ultimately got the Lions the win in this matchup. Any other notes on this Chiefs-Lions game? Let me know down below. I think the Chiefs lost this game purely because nobody could catch the ball except Rashee Rice and a little bit of Marquez Valdez-Scantling in there. Anyways, I will catch you guys in the next video. Best of luck in your week 1 matchups. Peace out.